So, what in the world connects a politician in New York City to a prisoner locked away in Delhi? It's a story that starts local, but quickly spirals into this huge international debate, and it really makes you wonder, where do we draw the line when it comes to global politics?
I mean, think about it. It all kicks off with this American politician who, for some reason, takes a very public interest in a court case happening halfway around the globe. But why this particular case? Why this one activist? The answer, as you'll see, tells us a whole lot about how global politics works today.
Okay, so let's meet the two people at the center of all this. On one side, you've got Zohran Memdani, a politician who's definitely making a name for himself in New York. And on the other, there's Umar Khalid, a well-known activist in India who stands accused in connection with the 2020 Delhi riots. Two totally different people from two different worlds, now suddenly linked by one letter that has set off a firestorm.
All right, so let's dive into where this all began. It starts with a single piece of paper, a letter, sent all the way from New York.
So, Memdani writes this public letter of support for Umar Khalid. And let's be clear, this wasn't some private, quiet note of encouragement. Oh no. This was a very public declaration. In fact, some people are calling it the single biggest piece of international support Khalid has gotten since his arrest. It instantly put his case on a global radar.
And this is the kind of language, the narrative, being pushed by some US representatives. This quote, it paints a very specific picture, right? A man locked up for years with no legal process, no trial, nothing. But does that picture actually match the facts on the ground?
To really understand the controversy, we have to peel back the layers of the international headlines and actually look at the legal case against Umar Khalid. So here's a quick timeline. The riots happened back in February 2020. Sometime after that, Khalid was arrested under something called the UAPA. That's the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. It's a really stringent anti-terror law in India. Now, he has been in jail since then, but it's also a fact that he was given a 7-day interim bail in December 2024 for a family wedding, and that was actually one of 2 times he got a temporary release like that.
And this is where the two stories really start to clash. The narrative gaining steam in the US is that Khalid is jailed without a trial and has been granted zero bail. But according to the sources on the ground, a trial is actually ongoing, and he has been granted that interim bail twice for family reasons.
So what you have here is a situation that's way more complicated than just a guy locked up with no justice. The wheels of the Indian judicial system are turning. Now, how fast they're turning and the process itself, that's a whole other debate. But it's a really important distinction to make.
But here's the thing. Memdani's activism isn't just focused on India. To really get the full picture, you have to look at how his political agenda is playing out on a completely different front at the same time.
Yeah, at the same time he's raising this issue about Umar Khalid, Memdani's also taking aim at another major US ally, but in a totally different part of the world, Israel.
Now, to understand his next move, we all have to be on the same page with this term, anti-Semitism. It means hostility or prejudice against Jewish people. And why is the official definition so important? Well, because how you define it has huge implications for policy and law.
And this is where Memdani's action comes in. He has actually started a move in New York to get rid of the state's official definition of anti-Semitism. Now, what's the potential impact of that? Well, it can make it a lot easier, both legally and politically, to organize boycotts and protests against the state of Israel without those actions being officially labeled as anti-Semitic.
So, as you can probably imagine, taking on the internal issues of two major countries, all from an office in New York, yeah, that did not go unnoticed. The backlash from both nations was fast and it was sharp.
From Israel, the reaction to his move on the definition of anti-Semitism was, well, blunt. Official statements basically accused him of spreading anti-Semitism and just said, flat out, this is not leadership.
And from India, members of the ruling BJP party had a very similar message about his letter on Umar Khalid. They shot back, condemning it as a foreign politician interfering in the sovereign, internal affairs of their country.
So when you take a step back and look at all of this together, these don't really seem like isolated incidents, do they? Instead, you start to see the outline of a much bigger and maybe more strategic global political game being played. But check out this contrast, because it's fascinating. While the Umar Khalid case in India is getting all this attention from some US lawmakers, just think about the situation in neighboring Pakistan. You have the case of the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, which many people say is a much more severe legal situation, and yet you hear relative silence from the very same political circles in the US.
You see that discrepancy? And it just forces you to ask a critical question. Why the intense focus on one case but not the other? Is this really about universal human rights for everyone, or are there other strategic, political reasons behind it all? This kind of selective attention is exactly what makes people suspect there's a calculated agenda at work.
And this really brings us to the massive, central question of this whole story. We live in a world where one politician in New York can write one letter and create diplomatic headaches in New Delhi and Tel Aviv. It forces us to ask, in this hyper-connected world of ours, where is the line between showing international concern and just plain interfering in another country's business? And maybe, the more important question is, who gets to draw that line?